This is Mark Goodier on Radio 1. We're taping this interview overlooking the bay at Nice, at Elton's home in the south of France. This is, don't take this the wrong way, this is like coming to something from Hello magazine.
It is a bit,
fantastic.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, I just always wanted to have a house here, even though in Tantrums and Tiaras, a documentary, I said I was never coming down here again. But we looked for a house for about a year or so and found this one, and it's just perfect because it means basically that I can, when I do Europe and tour in Europe, which I will be next year, it's a 24-hour airport here, and I can just fly in and out and come home, which I love to do now. I do the same in America if I can.
This means you'll fly for 2 hours after doing a gig just to get in your own bed?
I'll come back here from Stockholm. I had my days of staying in hotels and causing ruckus and having great nights up and staying up all night, and now I just want to come home. And it's a difference when you get to 50 to how you feel at 30. I tend to end up at sort of museums and art galleries and places like that rather than go out to see music, unless it's something I really want to see. As you get older, things change, the things you prefer change. And I think it is, life is all about constantly experiencing things as you get older. And I know it's quite a pleasant experience. I never thought I'd say, well, I'd rather go to the Victorian Art Museum than go and see a live show, but that's kind of how I feel now.
I was going to ask you, having made contemporary pop music as long as you have, do you still find it as challenging to make as the Disney stuff that you have done and that you're doing?
Oh, I think so. I always look forward to writing a new album, and I've always looked forward to recording, because you're always ultimately in search of your best song, your best track. And of course you think you've done it, and of course you haven't, and that's the thing that drives you on.
I'm interested in what you said about, always searching for your best song. Yet people seem to say it's somewhat incredible that you could think that you hadn't written your best songs already, because you've written so many, frankly, fantastic songs.
Well, I genuinely love what I do, and that sort of chase for perfection, you're never satisfied. I don't think any artist is ever really tremendously satisfied in the long run. They always think they can do better. Sometimes they can't, and sometimes they can. That's the challenge of making an album. Sometimes you go in and you think it's really good, and then 6 months later, when you can actually look at it in a fair light, you think, oh, well, maybe it wasn't so good after all. It's nice when you're 50 to have those other diversions to be able to do. It's nice to be able to write the stuff for Disney, and we've got 2 stage musicals on the boil. The Lion King, which has already opened in Minneapolis, and we'll be going to Broadway in November. And then Tim Rice and I have written a new version of Aida.
This is the Verdi classical piece of music.
Yeah. Disney wanted me to do another animation movie after The Lion King, and I said, oh God, no, I don't think I can do that yet. So give me something really, really, really dangerous. And they said, how about writing Aida? And I said, well, that's only on a hiding to nothing there. But I have also done for DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg's company. I've done an animated movie again called El Dorado, City of Gold, which will come out in '99, which I'm really happy with. There are other interests in my life now, and it's always, to just tour and make records and do videos would be so ultimately boring. And as musicians carry on in their life and you see them evolve, they tend to do other things. Like you see Paul Weller, he did the Jam, he did the Style Council, now he's Paul Weller. And you have to, otherwise you get a little bit bored. There has to be other kind of, either other music or other strings to your bow. And for me, it's, I feel just as enthusiastic now about making one of my own album, but it isn't, the only thing in my life. I'd love to make an album like Underworld or The Prodigy or Chemical Brothers or stuff like that, because that's the sort of stuff when I get up in the morning, that's the stuff I put on. It's, it's got so much energy, and it's different. Since the late 70s, we've had punk that's come along, we've had rap, and now we've had this kind of British industrial stuff, and it's, Underworld are my favourites, without doubt. I listen to that sort of stuff, and a lot of it's keyboard influence, so that's probably why I like it.
But you see, what you don't do is, you don't do what Bowie does, which is kind of go and do something which is, drum and bass or techno
I wouldn't know how to, actually. That's the thing,
But even if he doesn't know how to, he always goes and finds somebody. But what is it that, are you saying that that's what I like, but it's not what I do?
Yeah, so I'm not very technical. If I was a technical person and I was really involved in, I don't even know how to work on a computer, then probably I would be far more into doing that sort of stuff. When Gianni was alive, Gianni Versace was alive, he said, you must do an instrumental album. And I've always wanted to do one. I've always said in interviews I'm going to do one. And the next project I do will be an instrumental album, definitely. And I will hopefully collaborate with these sort of people and get a great programmer. I want to do an up one. I don't want to do a Song for Guy album, because I can do that very easily. I can do that with a drum machine and piano, and that's simple. It's about time I sat down and really tried to do something that really is energetic. So I'm going to have to sit down on the next project and get someone's help, like David does with his stuff.
You don't invite people into your world, do you?
My friends, yeah. I mean, I don't particularly invite Hello Magazine into my world. That's what you mean, don't you? I don't want to. You always get those horrible, pictures of people dressed up to the nines in their kitchen and with ridiculous poses,
with their
pretending
babies.
to fry an egg or something. No, it's not for me. I'm not knocking Hello Magazine because it's the first thing I get every Tuesday. Only to have a good laugh, basically, and see who's in it this week. But they're beginning to run out of people. I am a private person to some extent, but I'm not a recluse. We've had non-stop visitors all the time. We had the Pet Shop Boys down last week, and we had such a laugh with Janet Street Porter. And so, I mean, there's no point in having a beautiful house like this if you can't share it with people that you really like.
Sport is still, I mean, I come in here, you talk to everybody who comes in from Great Britain to see what they think about what's going on. Of course, you're back as chairman of Watford again.
Yeah.
Sport is obviously, very, as well as music, a very central thing to your life, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think it's a great equaliser, and it's a great, you do a gig and people come together for that gig with all different opinions, different religions, and they forget about it. And it's the same as if you have a kickabout in a park with a football or tennis or something. You can play someone you don't even know, you just met, and you can have fun, and you don't have to have all that bullshit surrounding everything. Sport is a great equaliser, and it's a great common denominator, and it brings people together. It's not divisive.
Last time round when you were at Watford, it was a particularly successful time.
Yeah.
What is it you bring as a chairman of a football club, do you think?
Well, last time, and it was 1976 I became chairman of the club, and we got Graham Taylor, and it was 10 fantastic years. I mean, from a 4th Division club to Europe, to the Cup final, to being second in the 1st Division, as it was then. I've got a lot of experience. I bring ambition and obviously publicity. When I first went into football, I thought I'd have to learn so much, and I went to a couple of Football League meetings, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Oh my
Would you like to elaborate?
God. No, I'm not going to elaborate. I'll be bringing the game into... I always think that's so ridiculous, bringing the game into disrepute. I mean, what a load of old tosh.
It's interesting how things are cyclical, isn't it? In music, things seem to come in cycles. It seems to be the case in sport too.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you've defeated is the drugs and the drink thing.
Yeah.
The drug thing, particularly, is serious in football now. It's also really serious. It's big in the music business again.
Yeah.
You can dispense words of wisdom here or do whatever you want, but you can certainly look from a viewpoint of having been through that hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it always will be around music. I don't think there's any, you live that lifestyle, you travel a lot, you stay up, you drink, you party. I don't think it will ever, to be honest with you, disappear from the music scene. Football is a different thing, and sport. I know in football there's a lot of cocaine use, and I'm saying this because I know, I'm not naming names, but there's a lot of drugs that are prevalent in football, and a lot of high-profile players are on drugs. And some clubs just seem to close their eyes about it. I mean, we all know stories about players who don't turn up for training, players late for training, and you just put two and two together, and you know what's going on. And it's about time it was stamped out because, or these players were helped because it's, as a footballer, how many years do you get at the top? Maybe if you're lucky, start when you're 18, 19, and you get to 32. So you've got maybe 13 or 14 years if you're lucky. And if you're going to throw it away and your international future or your first team future by doing that, it's once you've had one hit of cocaine, you like it, and it's very difficult to stop. I can understand maybe a sportsman wanting to try steroids to go faster, but cocaine's not going to make you go faster. It's going to, the day after you take it, you're going to feel like shit.
I think what is very interesting about you is that all the way throughout your career, and you can't have failed to notice this, the British public particularly hold you in such affection. There isn't any other word for it.
No, I think the British public like honesty, and I think when the Sun thing, when I sued the Sun, I think a lot of them were on my side. And when I won the case, when I said I was gay, blah blah blah, I was chairman of a football club and I was gay, and I had I had the piss taken out of me so many times.
I'm sure.
But it was good natured, and if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Is my I didn't take offence to it. I just thought those years when I was chairman of a football club, I didn't have any malice towards me whatsoever. I had good natured bantering, which is what the public do, and they'd send you up. I never left the country, although I did feel like it at one time when the Sun thing was going on, because it was just relentless. I think if you're honest, people respect you. And that would be my only clue as to why the British public have been so loyal.
This would be a good time to ask you about Gianni Versace, because people's affection for you, I think, I'm not sure whether it would have made it any better, but you're, because you're on the front page of all the papers, your very public grief at the funeral, I think people felt as much for you as they know you much more than they know him, if you know what I mean.
He was dear friend of mine. I've known him for a while, but the last 5 or 6 years, he's one of my closest friends, and his partner Antonio as well. David and I are very friendly with the whole family. I've had so many great holidays with Gianni. He's taught me so much. It's a local jet, folks. He taught me so much about art. You could never go music, even opera. Whenever I used to go with him, or David and I would be with him, we'd go to museums, we'd go to art galleries, we'd go to ancient churches or monuments. He was full of knowledge and full of life, and in return I taught him about, introduced him to modern glass and Venetian glass. And it was, I've never met someone who was so much like myself and who had this passion to learn and was full of life. And hey, I still can't get over the fact that I won't hear his voice every so often ring me up saying, come on, where you are, let's go to a museum, let's go to this. Before I met him, I never used to do any of those things. So he really introduced me to a lot of beautiful things and a lot of knowledge. And I loved him very much. I loved his whole family. And it was a very public funeral in Italy because he was a very much revered man. I haven't lost anyone that I cared about as much for a long time, apart from my grandmother died, but I expected her to die. I knew she was going to die. When that sort of thing happens and someone is murdered, like John Lennon, who was another of my friends, two of my best friends creatively in the world have been murdered outside their front door in America.
This was the parallel I was going to say, not an identical situation, but two people with whom you either had worked or had a very good friendship.
Yeah, and it's the incredible shock of it, and it's the unexpectedness of it, and all this bit about the mafia and all this bit about well, they must have known each other. Gianni was going to be going back to Rome and stayed on it for a fashion show in Rome and just decided to stay on it. It was wrong place, wrong time. And I resent the fact that they can say, the celebrity lovers who went to Gianni's funeral. He was a dear friend, and and people to say that.
I don't think they said that about you.
Well, they just said in general people who went, and I've got the names of the journalists, and when I meet them, I shall personally strangle all of them. Thank you.
You're right. It is the shock of it. It's the waste of it. Does it worry you?
Well, it would never used to, but to be honest with you, when I'm in America now, I never have a bodyguard. I mean, I do have someone looking around with me in New York after what happened to John. I've always had someone like that, nowhere else. And it's taken my freedom away from me in Atlanta, because I literally get in the car in Atlanta, go up to the Tower Record store every Tuesday when the records are released, and just ferret around. I always come back with something. I just can't take that chance anymore for my family and for David. And with the killing of Gianni, all the stakes have changed, the rules have changed. I've said to a couple of my friends in the business, you be careful, especially those who've got families and children. Don't take the risk.
If they were to say, would you be Lord Elton John?
Lord John used to be. Do you remember Lord John used to be a boutique in Carnaby Street?
Lord John, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about that, because I don't think they'll do that, because what they're trying to do is to make sure that people who become lords actually spend some time in the House of Lords and actually take it seriously.
I could see you there. With the wig.
With the wig, I've got a few. Got a couple from my old tours with the Mohican haircut. I don't know. I've got too much of my own life to do. I've got so many things to write, so many things to do, so many tours to play. I mean, I'm a musician. I want to keep playing music. That's what I love to do. It's what I do best. All those bands that are out now that are doing well, like Prodigy, and I'm sure Oasis will tell you, there's nothing like getting out there and playing. And they're only babes. They're only baby bands, I call them, because they're only young.
Let's talk briefly about Oasis, because they are revered. Some people say unduly, but they've sold a lot of records, particularly in the UK. Do you think they're as good as people say they are?
The thing I like about them are their songs. They revere the Beatles. Maybe they revere them a little too much sometimes, but at least they revere someone who wrote great songs and were great musicians and were part of our lives. So they bring back those kind of songs and those kind of memories. And I like them. I've met Liam more times than I met Noel, and I've gotten on with them great. And I respect them very much. I think Liam is a great singer, one of the best lead singers of all time. And it works, and it's excitement.
Do you think the Beatles comparisons, though, in how big they are ridiculous?
They are, really, because the Beatles were a phenomenon. They were like Elvis Presley. I mean, you get those phenomenons once every 30 years, maybe. The Beatles couldn't go anywhere without being recognised. They were prisoners of their own hotels. And I'm sure Oasis would hate that. It would drive them crazy. One
of the people who you were quite supportive of was Gary Barlow.
Yeah.
Were you disappointed by his solo album?
I was a bit, because I heard some of the songs that he played me. He played me 3 or 4 songs the first time he came down to play some, and I really liked them. And I think what's happened is the record companies have got involved, and they've taken some of his songs out, and they put "Hang On" in their baby in there, which is a huge mistake. And I'm sure Gary feels gutted. And I really like Gary a lot. I just think he probably got so confused in the end. I think he's a very talented songwriter. Because we're close, I knew what hassles he was put through with that album by the interfering record company.
Because you see, Robbie, who also you've been very good to, has actually delivered what many people regard as 3 fantastic pop records.
I've heard Robbie's songs in and out of his bouts of naughtiness. He's always come down and played them to me, and I've been very impressed. And
those 3 hit singles are, by anybody's standards, very good pop records, although one was a George Michael cover.
Yeah, Robbie's got definite ideas of what he wants to do, and so does Gary. But I mean, Robbie's just got to be careful now that he's come out of rehab and everything like that. That he really concentrates on his career rather than just leaguing. And it's very dangerous. He's so young, Robbie, and I adore him. But it's time now to get the album out, get to work, and stop hanging around with those arseholes.
You don't mean Noel and Liam, do you?
No, he hasn't. No, Noel and Liam. I mean, I think Robbie's behaviour got too much for Noel and Liam,
really?
to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, no, I don't think. Because I asked Liam if he'd seen Robbie, and he said no, and he said that lad needs to watch himself. So.
Liam Gallagher saying
now I can guarantee you Liam said that.
Let's wrap up here. This is 40 albums I think you've released now. Last question, can you name them all?
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to name them all?
No, but you could.
I could, yeah.
Excellent. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much, Elton John.
Thank you very much.